you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And I do want to talk about the man that some love and some hate, but absolutely everybody has an opinion on. That is, of course, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, head coach, Colorado Buffaloes. And obviously, if you listen to this show, you know that we do talk about him on YouTube from time to time. But on the pod, you know, it's been a while. And listen, you know why? It was an up and down end to the season. Finished 4-8 overall. Last couple of weeks have been kind of dicey. You lose some recruits to decommitments, although I will admit that basically happens at every school in America. Lose a couple coaches to different opportunities. Again, that happens anywhere in America. But because it's Coach Prime, it gets overblown. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to discuss it, whatever. Well, I'm not here to talk about any of that. Not here to talk about a defensive line coach staff change or a 3-star entering the portal. But instead, what I want to do, and we'll get back to Coach Prime in a minute, but this topic, this conversation starts with a piece of high school football recruiting news. That is because on Thursday, we knew that Jordan Seaton, the #1 offensive tackle in high school football, was going to make his college decision, okay? He was down to 4 schools, cut his list down to 4 earlier this week, said he was ready to make an announcement. Those 4 schools, Ohio State, Tennessee, Bama, and Oregon. And so we don't really know what's going to happen. He just took a visit to Ohio State. There's whispers that he could possibly commit to Tennessee. But again, I was kind of monitoring it, but I was out walking my dog, didn't think much of it, figured I'd see when I see, and if it's interesting, we'll talk about it on the Friday Aaron Torres pod. Well, I bring it up because it certainly was interesting. As Jordan Seaton, the #1 offensive tackle in high school football, down to 4 schools, Tennessee, Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon, he chooses, drum roll please, he didn't choose any of them. He chose Colorado and Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. It is an unbelievable story. I want to dive in. Now, I'll say this. If you're watching on YouTube, we did do a immediate reaction segment when the news happened. If you saw it, I'm wearing a hat. I'm all disheveled. What I want to do now, I've had a few hours to kind of digest it, take it all in. I want to talk about the commitment, but I also want to dive into what's next. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, Coach Prime, I'm so over that guy. Everybody talks about him too much. Well, get ready, because I think he is set to make some big moves this month, whether you like him or not. Now, in terms of the commitment, I do just want to revisit some of the things I talked about in the immediate reaction episode or segment. And the bottom line is, you know, this is both like a total shocker, but also if you followed this recruitment, not a total shocker either. Let me explain why. It's a total shocker because, again, he's down to 4 schools: Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, Bama. I've told you that twice already. You don't need me to repeat it. But at the same time, if you followed his recruitment, it always felt like Colorado really had some buzz. You go back, he took an unofficial visit the weekend. This is big. He took an unofficial visit the weekend of that Colorado State game. That was peak Coach Prime hysteria. That was when Lil Wayne let him out of the tunnel. That was when The Rock gave a pregame speech. I believe ESPN and Fox were there for their pregame shows. So he was on campus for that. But what's important was he took an unofficial that weekend. And then about 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of the last home weekends of college football, he actually took a second visit, an official visit with his whole family. And so it was a little surprising when he cut his list down to 8 a few days ago. And then he cut it down to those 4 that I just mentioned that Colorado didn't make the list because it felt like they were in the mix. But when he puts out the 4, you assume they're not in the mix. You assume it's done. You assume it's all about NIL, or at least NIL is going to play a factor. Coach Prime said, we don't do NIL on the front end. You can come here and earn it. So there was nothing that really said that there was trending that he was going to commit to Colorado. Now, I will say, by the way, one thing that should have given it away. I did hear that he was planning on committing in LA, in California. And if you saw the video clips, he actually committed on the Skip Bayless show, Undisputed. And so on the one hand, when I heard LA, I did kind of think, well, that could be an NIL thing, right? Somebody could want them to promote their restaurant, their whatever, their movie studio, whatever. Could be a million reasons it's in LA. Could be an NIL deal, whatever. But when I saw it was undisputed, I was like, oh, we should have known that it was probably Colorado. Skip, Michael Irvin, Keyshawn Johnson, all very close with Coach Prime. Now that it's done, just a couple thoughts on it. One, I cannot express how important this is. And again, this is a little bit of what we talked about in the immediate reaction is, listen, we all know Colorado desperately needs offensive line help. You could argue Colorado needs offensive line help as much as anyone in college football needs anything this offseason. And so you look at what Colorado's weaknesses were coming in. This was a team that finished last in college football in rush offense. It's not good. 131 out of 131. Second most sacks allowed. So they needed help along the offensive line to go out and get the best player available at the position in high school. I cannot emphasize enough how big it is. We've seen Coach Prime close on cornerbacks and safeties and wide receivers. But to get the dudes up front that matter, that means something. By the way, for everybody who says, oh, well, I mean, if you're expecting an offensive tackle to come in day one and start, you have another thing coming to you. Really? Because Alabama's in the college football playoff right now. You know who their starting offensive tackle is? Caden Proctor, the number one offensive tackle in high school football a year ago. By the way, the number one high school tackle a year before was Kelvin Banks. Started as a true freshman at Texas 2 years ago. Big reason why Texas is in the playoff is because the offensive line is monstrous. So don't tell me offensive linemen can't start. By the way, LSU won the SEC West last year with two offensive tackles that were both true freshmen. So it can be done. It's on this kid to come in. It's on this kid to play. But this is a position of need, and I cannot emphasize enough how important it is. I'd also add one thing that I learned, and this is kind of getting into some of the newer stuff that I didn't even think about as I recorded the first segment. One, as adults, can we stop projecting our thoughts on what an 18-year-old kid's thoughts are? Let me explain what I mean by that. Because all I heard for the last 4 or 5 weeks, no one's going to want to go play for Coach Prime. No, it's not going to happen. 0%. Who's going to want to go there? It's a disaster. And what I would say is, what we see as adults isn't necessarily what high school players see, okay? We saw a program that struggled on the field. But you know what some of the best recruiting jobs in college football are on a year in, year out basis? It's the coaches that are selling, hey, we're on the way up. Come here, come be part of this, and come build something with us. You can make fun of it. You can say, oh, Colorado this. You can say Colorado that. Look at the recruiting rankings right now. Who was the buzziest team in recruiting in the summer? It was the Florida Gators coming off a 6-6 year. They got up to number 3 in the recruiting rankings, ultimately did fall down, but it doesn't change the fact that they were hot for a second. You know who's number 5 in the current recruiting rankings right now, 2023? It's the Miami Hurricanes. Miami's coming off a 5-7 season last year. They were 7-5 this year. They didn't know how to take a knee at the end of the game. You think those players care that they lost to Georgia Tech because they didn't take a knee? No, they see a team that needs help, needs opportunity where you can play right away. And I think that's what Jordan Seaton sees at Colorado. A chance to play right away, a chance to play for a Hall of Famer. He said to Steve Wiltfong, Coach Prime has that gold jacket. I'm trying to get me one of those. No better place for him to go. Lastly, what I would say, I think this proves something that I said when Coach Prime got this job a year ago from Jackson State. I said, I believe that he is going to get in homes that none of us can see coming. And I believe that he is going to recruit at a level that many of us don't expect. And I think what this specific situation proves to me, I believe this proves that if you can get Coach Prime in front of somebody, in front of a kid and in front of parents, he's got a shot. Not going to get everybody. Nobody bats 1,000, not Kirby Smart, not Nick Saban. But if you get him in front of a kid, they're going to at least be interested. He's dynamic. He's interesting. He played in the league. I think it's important to note that obviously most parents remember him as a player. And so that you get that guy in a meeting, in a setup with somebody, he's going to sell the crap out of you and he's going to make you think that it's at least worth considering. And so they're not going to get everybody, but I'll tell you this, the kids that he actually gets in front of, he's got a pretty good success rate of closing them. Travis Hunter 2 years ago, Cormani McClain last year. Now Jordan Seaton, and I don't think he's done. One, I think it's very interesting When we started talking about, okay, where are they going to get the offensive line help? I thought it was worth noting. We actually thought it was going to be another high school offensive lineman that he ended up potentially getting out of this class. It was Jaquan McCroy. I talked about this on the YouTube channel. There's a kid named Jaquan McCroy, top 100 prospect from Alabama. He's committed to Oregon. He actually visited Colorado last week. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to flip. Just checked his Instagram right before I came on air just to make sure I didn't miss anything. All the pictures are with Dan Lanning with Oregon. But I bring it up because 2 weeks before National Signing Day, when this kid could shut it down. Now I'm talking about Jaquan McCroy. That kid was at Colorado. He was posing. He was taking pictures. And so I'm not saying it's going to happen. But again, 2 weeks before National Signing Day, this kid goes to Colorado. Think it's interesting. And again, now Jordan Seaton is in the fold. So now you got another guy to play with. You got another guy to build around. I think that's interesting. Traylon Miller, top 100 prospect, was committed to A&M, decommitted right before Jimbo Fisher got fired. Top 100 prospect from Texas. Now, he's a wide receiver. You don't need as much help at the skill position. But he was at Colorado last week. And so I just bring it up because I feel like there are more to come. By the way, it's worth noting, Jordan Seaton actually happened early on the calendar relative to Travis Hunter and Cormani McClain. Remember, both those guys up until signing day were signed, sealed, and delivered somewhere else. Travis Hunter was on the verge. Florida State, no buzz at all until National Signing Day. Then it was like, oh my goodness, Jackson State and Coach Prime are going to flip this kid. Cormani McClain, National Signing Day. I remember watching the coverage on 24/7 Sports when you hear that he's not going to sign. And at first it's like, well, he's, is it Bama that's in the mix? It's Coach Prime. It's Deion that's in there again. So there are going to be more kids. And I'll say this, the portal kids, I'll be fascinated. Now, we know who the big portal names are. And I'm not going to start speculating. But I'm here to tell you, you get Coach Prime in front of some of those kids, I don't think anybody is off the table. Now, look, portal kid, they're more NIL-based. They're older. They know how the game is played. But for the best ones, you know what Coach Prime is going to sell? We don't do NIL here. But one, you hang with me, you're going to get paid. Like, we could talk about they don't have a collective. They don't do this. They don't do that. And I think they have a collective, but it's not, let's say it's not as robust as some other schools. But at the same time, it's like you get him there, you get those kids there. He's going to say, like, point blank, come with me. You'll get paid. I'll make sure, come be in an Aflac commercial with me. I don't care. But then two, and I think this is important as well, is, you get those elite transfer portal guys. Say, come here for 1 year. We're going to give you great exposure, great opportunity. You're going to be on national TV. You're going to be in national commercials, and we'll get you to the league in a year. So the point I'm trying to make, I don't want to start blindly speculating. I don't want to start throwing out names of kids. That's not fair. I don't do that. But I believe there are 2, 3, 4, 5 more storylines to come with Coach Prime. And again, not enough to build a national championship contender overnight. You need a roster full of Jordan Seatons, not just Jordan Seaton. But am I impressed with Coach Prime? Am I amazed that he just pulled it off again? I absolutely am. And I'm also here to say, I cannot wait to see what's next.